I actually started watching the video for card 3.
Uh-huh.
And he pretty much talks about security groups, and just saying that security groups is like, it's very very similar to a virtual firewall for your EC2, where it controls the inbound and outbound traffic. And then like he kind of explains like what outbound traffic is. He just says it's like the stuff that's arriving to your EC2, which is like the internet. And then the outbound is what is leaving your EC2. And then he talks about how security groups enforce security at an instance level, not the subnet. And then I'm like just trying to look at my notes as I'm talking about it. Sorry. And then there's different EC2 instances that could have different types of security groups on it. So this one seems a little bit more compact. Like I feel like we'll need more information, just because I think he's just trying to give us the key features, but to totally understand it, we might need to like do a little more research on it.
Right. Like I know the slide says that I guess by default all outbound traffic is permitted. So it's like, I guess I kind of wonder like in what case would you have like outbound traffic like you didn't want going out? Like
I know, and like he doesn't really go into that, and that's something that I guess when we see Alexis next week, we could ask her. Just because I didn't even ask my roommate, I didn't even think about asking that, but I did see that, and I was like, man, I don't know. That's a good question. But I know that like he also said like when you define your rules, so like you could actually stick with the default, or you could create your own. But he said that it's not recommended for you to do that, because and this is where I'm not like I don't understand this, because it says you could customize it according to your needs, but it isn't recommended because the groups should be named according to their purpose. So, and he doesn't really give much stuff on that, and it's like that was very vague for me. And then I looked up some stuff, and it says like, traditional firewalls can be rigid and limiting. And so like the security groups allows you to specify permissive rules, and you cannot deny any traffic. But yeah, there's like, this is the one that I think I need the most to wrap my head around, just because I mean, I'm reading it and I understand what I'm reading, but I feel like there's more that I need to understand the whole concept.
yeah, I'm kind of wondering if it's like not niche, but like if you're like, is this it almost sounds like the security rules that are defaulted are like going to be fine for most people if they're saying they don't recommend like you mess with them. And so I wonder, like, would you have to have like some sort of background in like cybersecurity to like really know what you're doing? Like,
that would make more sense. I didn't think of that. See, my problem is I overcomplicate things sometimes, and I don't see something like that seems very, very useful, and something that you would think as you're thinking about it would just come to mind. So I'm kind of glad that you brought that up, because I was like really overthinking that.
just a possibility. I'm gonna write that down on my list to Google, because like I would like to know like when would you need to like play with what's there, I guess.
Yeah, and then he said security groups are stateful. I don't know if he said that or if I found that, but it is stateful. So it means like when you send your request from your instance, you'll receive a response request, and then This is where it's like disregarding the rule set of your inbound security group. And then it, while that's happening, it will reply to allow your inbound traffic to go, to be allowed to follow out. And then if you don't have outbound rules that explicitly allows it to go out, so like it'll happen even if you don't have that happen. So I guess that has a little bit more detail of like if you do customize it. I don't know.
Yeah, that confuses me a little bit because like when I think like stateful, I think of like React and like them telling us we want to make stateful components, and so it's like trying to mentally relate that to like security groups. I'm like, wait, what? Like,
yeah, me too. And then like it also states that like one of the biggest mistakes that folks make with security groups is thinking that your instance is say like if you have multiple instances and you're using the same security group, that it'll be able to communicate with one another. And it's like where I read that, it says it's not true. It all depends on how you create that rule if you want to allow that to happen.
okay, so you have to specify that they can communicate with one another?
Yes.
Okay.
And then
Interesting.
I know, right? And like I went through this is, like I said, these are the notes that I'm like just reading off of just because I'm like, oh, this is something that we could talk about. This is something just to have conversation. But I do feel like I don't have like the whole thing understood, that I could have like a good conversation going back and forth and like, oh yeah, that I understand, and I could give like an example of that. But he does state that there are two types of AWS security groups, and you got like the EC2 Classic and the EC2 VPC. I forget the C, VPC. I'm trying to see like, so like the Classic, you can only create inbound rules, where the VPC, you could do both inbound and outbound rules. And then if you already launched your instance, you cannot assign a different security group to it. But with an EC2 VPC, you can change the sign group. So that like kind of sounds very, so I guess it's just the Classic that you can't change. And then when you add a rule to the EC2 Classic, you no longer have to specify the protocol. And then, but you do need to do that with the EC2 VPCs. So I guess it just depends on like the ones, and I think I just need to get like more information on like the EC2 Classic and EC2 VP, because like just going over that and reading it out loud confused me even more.
Honestly, same. Like I feel like towards the beginning of the video, a lot of it was like kind of high level overview and kind of covered some of the stuff that we already like talked about in like the essentials course. So it wasn't like you didn't really need a whole lot of time to marinate on it. Whereas I feel like the farther we go into the video, it's like for certain sections, I'm coming away with more questions and answers. And it's like makes me want to dig into the documentation a little bit to see like, okay, you know, you gave me a brief overview of like the what, but I want to know why.
Right. And I think that's where I am at with this, because it's very compact and very like he goes into detail in more than the other videos that we've seen, but it's still not enough. And I think it's only because like with the Practitioner, we only need like the surface of this stuff. But I'm looking at it as like, well, I want to understand why this is like this. It's not just, okay, I just need to know this for the Practitioner.
Right. I would be interested though to ask Alexis when she gets back, like I'm assuming it's like you're saying where they probably don't expect you to go super deep on it, but I would like to know, like, since she's taking it, like, you know, what do you remember of what they ask you about security?
Yeah, because it is kind of overwhelming and just a lot of stuff. And then, you know, he goes over to like the different so he talks about the Elastic Block Store, the EBS, and pretty much says that the Amazon Block Store provides block level storage volumes for the EC2 instances. But then he starts talking about, like, he doesn't really go into great depth about the block store. Then he goes straight into like EBS volumes and how they're highly available, reliable storage volumes that can be attached to any running instance that is in the same availability zone. And then where does it say? And then like if the EBS volumes are attached to an EC2 instance, they're exposed to storage volumes that persist independently from the life of an instance. I'm reading, like I watched this, I took these notes and I'm still going, I don't understand.
Yeah, it kind of sounds a little bit like Greek to me now. Like I'm looking at the slide where it says that about like the volumes being attached, but like my brain is kind of like, okay, like I'd be nice to have like a specific example of like when would I need, you know, a volume of storage to outlive my EC2 instance, like, you know,
Right.
like you're like them saying that they can persist independently from the life of the EC2 incidents. Like it sounds like a pro, but like I don't know when I would be like, yay, like that's exactly what I need.
Right.
But what if you use the storage instance for your database and you use the EC2 for your backend or your front end, and those are stateless? Do you know what I'm saying?
That makes sense.
And I think that's where we're confused about how stateless is, just because in the front end, stateless is very different than how we're trying to understand the stateless on this.
Like you're using the EC2 for the compute, but you want the storage to last. You don't need the website to stay up forever.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Thanks,
You can
Jimmy,
also
'cause that makes it better.
You can also scale the compute, you know, that you have to handle people coming in, but scaling the database is a whole different animal.
Okay. Yeah, and he doesn't really go into much. Like he talks about like SSD volumes and HDD volumes. I don't know if that has anything to do what you're talking about.
I don't know what those are.
Yeah, so like I'm looking it up right now.
It's like a solid state drive.
So it optimized for transactional workflows involving frequent read and written operations with a small, and like, I don't know what this, I guess /O size. So like that's something that I would need more information, like what do they mean by that? And then where a dominant performance attribute is IOPS, which is like another thing that I had to look up. So IO is characteristics drive. So like, what does the IO mean? It just says on a given volume configuration, certain IO characteristics drive the performance behavior for the EBS volumes. So like,
oh, I know what that is. Wait, you said what are the IO characteristics? What does that mean?
Yeah.
Is it talking about speed or count? So those are input output operations. And for instance, you can probably get a cheaper rate if you're using a spinning platter hard drive. Those are slower, but really cheap. And then solid state hard drives are, you know, the more expensive modern ones, but they're really fast. And I remember you can choose, like, do you want a solid state? Do you want it to be on, like the even fastest hard drives are M.2, which is basically a port type. And you can get, you know, gigabytes per second speed kind of thing.
Yeah, and I know like they're showing like AWS has 4 different types that you could use.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if it's in IOPS. IOPS is a little different than speed. So for instance, if you're transferring like thousands of small files, which tends to happen in like code bases or games or things like that, where there's for some reason they made thousands of files that are all like 1 kilobyte, that actually takes a lot longer to transfer because those are each input output operations. And it takes a whole lot longer to transfer than the actual like megabytes per second limit of the connection. This is just something I found out the hard way, transferring a lot of things. So IOPS is a little different than like gigabits per second.
Yeah, and he kind of goes over the IOPS, but he doesn't, like, he says it, he doesn't go over it. Like I had to go out and find information on IOPS, and then throughput. I think it's how you say
Throughput.
it, throughput.
Throughput is probably the like overall data per second, not how many operations per second.
Right. And that was also like something that he brought up. Where is it? He just says, like, on the Amazon pricing, it depends on the volumes, the snapshots, and the transfer, the data transfer, which is part of that. There's just like, he goes over a lot of information and he just reads off the slides, and he isn't like, he'll give like a small, sometimes he'll give you an example, but not like how he was in the beginning, where he was giving, like, I felt like he gave some really good examples in the beginning to make you understand stuff.
It sounds like his quality was really thorough in the beginning, and then now he's kind of getting into the grind of it. Like, let's just get this curriculum out.
Well, I think he also, I don't think we have the full course because, yeah. And I don't know if it's just that, because you could tell like he deleted stuff. And so like we're on module 3, but in his video it shows that we're on module 4. So like I feel like there's like a something
about
missing.
What timestamp are you talking about here?
Let me go in there. So the beginning of module 3 starts, which is his module 4, is at 1 hour 45 minutes and 48 seconds.
Okay. I'm currently 1 hour and 28 minutes in.
Yeah, so like that shows that you're still like, that's still part of module 2 for him. And that's why, like, in the beginning when I was talking about it, I'm like, I wasn't going through modules how he was explaining on the video, because he skipped, like, and I don't know where that went. And then I was trying to follow the modules in the file that someone shared in the comments of the video, which I shared with you guys, that have all the slides, and some of the stuff don't like match. So I think he updated some stuff, and I think it's just because, you know, I think it's what, a year old, the video. It might be a year or 2 old. So like I know
August is 2019, so almost 2 years.
Yeah, so he might have just went in and updated like some stuff in there, and maybe he accidentally removed something. I don't know. But
I mean, I wonder if he'd respond to questions.
We asked, well, I know I personally asked, like, because in the description he says that he provides like all the slides and like something else, and it was Nadia, Sam, Alexis, and I, and we were looking through and trying to find it, and we couldn't find it. And several people asked about it, and he didn't do anything. That's where we found that that file that had someone else that like screenshot each and every one. So, and I think like since that guy did that, things might have changed a little.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
I'm still kind of wondering how to split a database into and keep them synced up. But it's not super important. But it seems like it's something you should be able to do, but I have no idea how.
I'll write that down, see if like because like my roommate actually has a meeting that he's attending right now. Maybe he would know. Maybe I could ask him that we don't have Alexis here this week. It's her birthday. It was her birthday yesterday, so she's celebrating.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah. So I did write that down. He does go over like what snapshots are, which is kind of cool. It kind of is, I mean, how I took it is it's kind of like either a recording of what your previous volumes are, and you could actually put it to another EC2.
By volumes, you mean like storage volumes?
Yeah.
Kind of
So,
wondering how that's, I'm thinking like SQL databases.
Yeah, where is it? So it says you could take snapshots of your EBS volumes that are like a point in time image of your volumes. So
Okay.
it's like a copy of your volume, and then you could use them to create a new EBS volume with different volume types and attach it to your instances. So like the snapshot can be used as backup for volumes, and it is stored in the S3, and you could access it on your EC2 dashboard. So that's kind of like a
Okay.
And then I know he briefly talked about like the security, but he didn't like, he talked about, you know, provides encryption for data at rest. And it's for both volumes and snapshots. And it's supposed to help like meet your security and compliance requirements. And then you could actually use the Amazon managed encryption keys, or you could create your own with the AWS key management services. And then it says that you
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, and you could pair those policies up, policies for the encryption with the IAM, so the identity access management, so the IAM users roles, and access it with the access management roles to control the, I guess, the privileges of the EBS volumes.
Does that, just to, I guess, restate it, it sounds like you can make a website where you allow your users to generate their own API keys and work with your infrastructure through the API. I guess making like a standard API key to work with a website would be different than an AIM type, you know, set of keys for, because then that would allow you to work with like the infrastructure of your actual AWS setup. And you may not want them to do that.
Yeah, like there wasn't, like, again, there wasn't great clarification on that stuff. So, you know, I just watched the video and took notes, but I do feel like I need to like what me and Naughty were saying, I feel like we probably need to get deeper into it. But I really do think he's just like going over these terms loosely, because with the practitioner, I don't think we need to know the how yet, or, you know, what we want to know. But
Right.
I think like all three of us, we're all that type of person that like, to get a better understanding, we want to know the background of this stuff. And that's where I guess right now I'm struggling with.
Yeah, it's kind of I guess my questions are more like what can you do, what can't you do, what is this for?
Yeah, Nadia had the same questions. That's what she was saying. You know, like
Right.
when would we want to create our own customized, you know, security group, and, you know, the different things that we could do for it. And I mean, there's just a lot on this. But I mean, it was mainly just security groups on this first half hour on this card for, I think it was what, module 3, part 3. So it was mainly security groups for this one.
Okay.
That you went over the others. What did you feel about the other?
It's been a week since I've been in there, so you'd have to remind me what topics he covers. But so far, it's just it's not bad. It all makes sense, and I'm able to like watch the video and play a video game at the same time without really losing my train of thought. So
You're better than me. But I mean, I think it's like if you're listening to it, I think that's all you need. I know that I haven't really done any of the creation. Like I already created my EC2. Now
Yeah.
he does it a different way than us.
Right.
So if you follow his, some of my stuff won't work with his stuff because we have, like I'm using, what did I use? I used Ubuntu, and I think he's using another Linux version, but he's using, I think, for his AMI, but I think he's using something with Red Hat.
Okay.
Where, and I'm like trying to remember off of my head. I don't remember. Like I'll have to look at the video of.
Yeah, no, we don't need specifics too much. Red Hat's good enough.
Yeah, and then the one that I'm using, what is it that I would be using something different?
That's funny because the ones we actually use at work are like Windows, and you remote into them like with remote desktop on Windows, and then you can see the Windows desktop over there.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. I actually just did that today to a remote instance or an EC2 instance.
Nice.
Debian. So
Debian.
like, yeah. So like when you follow him, okay. So I don't know if you recently looked at my spreadsheet that I created for the acronyms. It keeps growing. And Nadia was awesome and created flashcards with it. So
I mean, there was already like a AWS documentation of like all the acronyms already there. So I was like, I don't need to duplicate this.
Oh yeah, I think it's because if I type it out, it like meshes more in my head. That's just the type of person. Yeah. But I also created an extra tab that is the console controls, like the
okay. The command line?
Yeah, the command line. So where he uses yum in his, like if you follow my my EC2 tutorial, like the step-by-step, you would have to use apt instead of yum. So you would just replace that.
Yeah, and apt-get is one of the more popular package managers in Linux, especially in Ubuntu. And then yum is a separate package manager. And I mean, typically you're either using one or the other. You wouldn't really want them to like fight each other or conflict with each other. Are you guys familiar with how package managers work?
I just know that like we put it in our JSON packages, and then once we have it in there, it gives us access. That could be like completely off on that.
Package managers, like they track what software is installed and where, and you can also do like, it can track what needs updating and update it all from a central place. And it keeps track of like websites that host the software. It's very similar to pip in Python. But pip is a package manager just for Python libraries, whereas apt is for the software installed on your operating system.
Okay.
And Python is like one of those things that apt tracks. Does that make more sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, Nadia, were you data science or web?
Web.
Oh, I don't know if you've ever worked with a package manager then.
I mean,
I don't think so.
So like when we
qualify or no? Sorry.
No, what did you say?
Oh, in Node you use npm as the package manager for JavaScript.
Yeah, that's what I thought, and I think that's where I was thinking, but I didn't get into great detail. But what were you saying? And I cut you off, Nadia. I'm sorry.
Oh, nothing. I was just asking if NPM counted.
Yeah, NPM is also really similar. It's a package manager for all of the node modules.
Which makes it so much easier.
I've spent hours fighting with both of them.
Yeah, I know during our labs, we had to, when we imported our repo, like when we pulled in the repo, we had to delete the JSON package lock because apparently it was messing up when we were doing the npm install that brought in all the node modules. So
Okay.
that was, I mean,
Were you by
got,
chance, were you using a different version of Node that, so I think Node, what was it? If you go from like version 6 to version 7, suddenly the package lock file is in a completely different format. And so you're probably better off just deleting and recreating it. Also,
yeah,
it will just respawn on its own if you delete it.
yeah, I think it might have been because I know like there's updates and stuff like that, just not on npm, but like in the node modules itself. So to be updated, I think they just want us to get into the habit of, if you're pulling in a project, to delete that JSON lock project lock file. So when you do npm, it imports all the updated versions. I mean, that's how I understood it.
That doesn't sound right. Because like I was on a work project, I put forward the idea of getting rid of our package lock file because everything I did was like changing the package lock file. And then they said, actually, we want to track that in Git and we want to be all using the same one so that we know that we're all using the same versions of software.
That's weird.
And when you update, the package versions are actually like, at least in there's a package.json and then there's a package lock JSON or
yeah, there's two. You have your regular, which is the ones that you want to use. So then when you do your npm install, it takes all that and pulls all the most recent node modules and updates, and that's where it creates that lock.
So yeah, and the lock is like, it has the hashes of all the packages. It has the locations where they all came from. Whereas the normal one is just like version numbers, and it's kind of, it allows a syntax of loose version numbering. Like, can I upgrade the third number in the version, or can I also upgrade the second number, or can I also upgrade the first number? And there's different symbols for in the syntax for like the version numbers that mean different ones. But package lock is supposed to be like an exact idea of what's in your node modules folder.
That's weird because like in our notes for our, I'll have to look up for our notes for our labs, they specifically stated to delete your package lock before you install.
If you have a package lock and you run npm install, it should give you exactly what the last person installed, and including any package conflicts that may have already been existing.
That's weird. I mean, that makes sense. That makes sense. But it's just how they made it sound like, I mean, how they explained it. That's, I just assumed, oh, you want to delete that lock because you want to make sure that you have the most updated versions. But
well, typically if you do want to update, then you can make some changes to your normal package JSON to, you know, update some version numbers or whatnot, and then you run npm install or npm update. There's different.
I wonder if they did that, like
which will change, that'll change your package lock file, and then you would push that and then ask everyone else to run npm install without and keep your new lock file. So it sounds like they weren't doing it right or doing it like an official way.
I guess not, because I mean, Nadia, what project did you work on? Was it the marketplace or was it City Spire?
In labs?
Yeah.
Well, the first time I did labs, it was Merchant Marketplace. On the second one, it was like village book builders.
What was the
Okay.
second one? Village Builder?
Village book builders, I think it was called.
Huh.
Did they have you delete the node modules, or is it just?
I don't remember having to delete the node modules actually.
Yeah, I remember. I'm gonna go look after this just to see, because I remember that was one of the steps.
Mhm.
Just because it wasn't something that we've done before in, like, our normal development in Lambda. So
Something else we had a hard time with was every time we push a new update and we want to run our whole testing suite again, we were rebuilding the Docker containers, which meant like reinstalling Node all over again. And that folder, the Node modules folder, is like more than a gig. And
yeah, it
like
is a pain in the ass.
50,000 files or something like that, which, pegs your IOPS. And so it ends up being really slow, even though the data size isn't the biggest reason for the slowness. And so we were using up all of our GitHub minutes for like the whole company in just one team.
Oh my
And
God.
the answer ended up being in like cleverly checking that the hashes of the node module or that the package lock file were the same. And if all the hashes had not changed in the package lock file, then you don't need to update. And so don't do that. And if they have changed, then it just does a run update or a npm update, and then it only updates the things that have changed. And so it's much cleaner and faster now.
This might be a dumb question, but what do you mean by GitHub minutes? Like you had a specific like limited amount of time you could spend on GitHub?
Yeah. So instead of using AWS, they're using part of like the test suite and stuff using GitHub Actions, and GitHub allows you some compute and some minutes that you can use to run GitHub Actions. A lot of times those GitHub Actions will be like set up to run a certain file, and that file will like spin up a few Docker containers, or it'll run like a make test API, which will run like a couple Docker commands in sequence, which those will spin up Docker containers and run test suites, that kind of a thing. And yeah, apparently we have a budget of like so many GitHub minutes, and we ran through them.
Wow.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah, that's how it all works.
I haven't worked with containers yet. Have you, Nadia?
You mean like Docker?
Yeah.
I've worked a little bit with Docker. Like, there's like some instructions in labs on like how to get your set up your database like locally with Docker, because I think I don't know if all labs projects do, but I know some of them have like Docker Compose. So I remember like when Alexis was talking about the YML files, like some labs projects have like Docker Compose like YMLs, I guess.
Yep.
So, like I've worked a little bit with it, but like I'm not.
Yeah, Docker Compose files will usually be a YAML file, and it looks an awful lot like it's not really JSON. It's more like a script.
Okay.
But YAML and JSON are siblings, and they're so similar. I couldn't tell you what the differences are.
Yeah, I remember her bringing up her EC2 and showing the YAML, and the first thing that I thought of is it looked very much like our JSON package information. Just it looks cleaner without the dashes and the curly braces. So like, in JSON you have like your key, your keys, and your objects are your key values. So you could still see like there's key values, but it doesn't break it down with the curly braces and the hard, like the brackets. It just looks cleaner.
I'm gonna see if I can find one actually. Show you guys. Too many things open.
And that was the one that she accidentally had left running, right, Nadia?
I think so.
Yeah. She went to show you something, Jimmy, and she totally forgot to close hers down.
Is that why she left it open?
No, like I think she totally forgot to close it because we were talking, and she never went back. So she got charged.
No, wait, I thought she left it running, but we figured that since you're allowed to run one instance around the clock and not like you can do that in the free tier that she wouldn't get charged.
I think it was something that there was like this long description that she had in Slack that I think you asked a question and she went and was doing something and she added another feature that would have been a charge.
Hmm.
And I don't remember what was the question. I just remember her saying, yeah, I remember like trying to talk it out with, because like it wasn't on video. I think she was talking to you through Slack and she was doing it, I guess, just to like remember the steps or something, but she was explaining it to you. And then I guess in the middle of that, she forgot to stop it.
Huh.
But yeah, I mean, she was joking like she couldn't eat lunch or something like that because she got charged.
Yeah, it's funny. She's like, I owe Amazon a penny. Like I'm out of the like I can't eat lunch now.
Yeah. It was pretty funny.
I think I've got something. Let me share my screen. Do you see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I don't see the green outline. So here is, let's actually back up a little bit. This is a repo for one of the APIs. It's an API that helps one of the front ends. And in here, you've got a Docker Compose file, which this one's fairly empty. I actually don't know what that part does. But there is also a make file. And a make file looks like it doesn't have an extension at all, has a whole bunch of Docker Compose commands. And these will run commands in the Docker folder and then a certain, like we'll go into that file in just a second, but then it runs it with some arguments. So on the command line, what I do is I say make test API and it will run all the API tests. And then I can also do like make dev up and it will spin up like 6 containers that are all for developer. But then make up spins up fewer containers that's just for running the website, but not really for a development thing, so that you can run lean and develop with all your tools. If I go into the actual YAML file, then each, like when I run, here's some API tests, there's going to be lots of arguments in here. I don't want to scroll down too far because there's some API keys down below for some reason. But that's kind of how it works, where one file calls another. Oh, the other thing I was going to show you guys. Here's some actions. And so I think some of these are hooked up so that every time they make a PR, it will automatically run the test suite so that the next time there is a PR and you go in, it should say that here's all the changes requested, all checks have passed.
Yeah, we've had to do that for labs.
And so it's running the API tests and a bunch of other checks so that when they're reviewing the PR, they have some assurance that like the code is solid at least.
And you have multiple users, like it says one reviewer that has to approve it before you could push it, right?
Yeah, our policy is that 2 devs have to approve it. And it looks like in this case, it's still open because there's a change requested somewhere.
Uh-huh.
I'm not a dev, but I work with them.
Yeah, we during labs we had at least 2, but we put like multiple people just in case if like someone couldn't look at it, someone else could actually, in our team could approve it. But yeah, I haven't seen this until we did labs, and it was cool, but also frustrating when like I don't know if you guys have tests that you have to go through each step to make sure before you could get it running, but they put in like some crazy stuff to make sure that we followed the testing and be able to fix it before we could move forward. So I don't know how it works on like the data science side, but that's what we had to do for front end, full stack.
Yeah, and what I'm showing you is work, not even.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
That's
I'm like,
cool. That is pretty cool. Yeah. And it's weird because ever since I did that for labs, now every time I do a repo, it always shows. So I guess it updated in my personal GitHub to have those actions going.
cool, cool.
Yeah.
The actions I think are specific to a repo. And then they're triggered by like different things you do to the repo. Anytime you change it or anytime you like somebody files a PR or merges, then it'll trigger actions, and the action will be set up to, I'm trying to.
I wonder if I did something that I didn't know, because the thing that I'm working on, it has actions.
Oh, here we go. So if you go into the GitHub folder and you go to workflows, and then these YAML files are tied, each YAML file is tied to an action. And so if somebody kicks off this action, yeah, it does all of this.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and so GitHub just knows to look in the workflow folder, and then I think you can call them what you want to, and so, and they provide, I don't know exactly how the compute works, but it's kind of like a platform as a service type of thing where you don't really have to worry about the details too much.
That's pretty cool. I'm gonna have to write that down because, I'm working on a project that I'm following a tutorial. So I wonder, like, when I pulled the repo, they actually had those actions, and that's the reason why I'm seeing it.
Yeah, it's one of the ways to kick off a continuous development pipeline.
That's kind of cool. Okay, yeah, I'll definitely look at that.
And at least my company seems to be moving more towards using GitHub Actions. There's also like half of our repos are in GitHub and half are in Bitbucket. And there's something similar to GitHub Actions on Bitbucket, but apparently it's not as good. Yeah. And if you've worked with Heroku, they have webhooks, and that's another way to like, automatically kick off a build.
Oh, I'm getting close to the project that I'm working on where they're going to show how to deploy it. So I wonder if he's going to use a hook. That's kind of cool.
I feel like my brain can't really process like GitHub alternatives. Like I get there like different sites for like you can deploy if you want, but it's like in my brain, it's like only GitHub can do what GitHub does.
Yes.
I see what you're saying. No, yeah, you basically, if you do like Git remote, oh, it's Joanne. If you want to use something like Bitbucket, then you just still take the URL of the repo, and you on your console you do like git clone and paste the URL, and it clones from Bitbucket instead of GitHub. And if you do git remote -- verbose, it'll list the URL to Bitbucket, and you may have to authenticate, but it's just like you would authenticate with GitHub. So it's, yeah, pretty similar.
Cool.
Hey, Miss Joanne.
Hi, Joanne.
Hello. I made it. I'm a little late, but I made it.
It's okay.
You're still here.
Yep. I know that we kind of discussed some of the stuff that we were going over on the video, and then from there, like certain topics led us to other things. So, but it was a really good conversation. I feel like I learned a lot, like stuff that I thought I knew, didn't really know that clear. Jimmy cleared some stuff up. It was pretty cool.